Hello, good morning and good afternoon to our international participants, and welcome to our June Vegan Leaders Livecast. And I have to tell you, this is a very, very unique livecast. My name is Anastasia Sterkova. I'm joined by our lovely co-hosts, Gail and Darina, and we represent Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management, 501c3 organization. When I said it's a unique livecast, I really meant it because this is the first time, and we've been doing this since February, that we actually have a live panel of speakers, and I'm very excited to introduce them to you today. So first of all, we have Clifton Roberts, who just told us he is running his own pretty much animal sanctuary in his own place. I never met a presidential candidate before. So in the daytime, he's a global director at Intel, but he was actually a vegan presidential candidate for Humane Party. Totally blew my mind, Clifton, as I was doing some background research on you. That is quite amazing. And then we have Carlos Morales joining us from Amsterdam. He is a partner at Deloitte in his daytime, but he actually runs an amazing vegan organization called Smarter Food Choices, and they offer food lab seminars for the corporations to make sure they cater and provide the right nutritious food for their employees, which is quite amazing. And then Judy Sheffel was not able to be here today. She's our own. She is with VLCM. SVP at Bank of America, but we pre-recorded the interview, and I will be able to play some of her thoughts and answers to the questions that we'll be asking our panelists live today as well. So we'll have contributions from 3 panelists today for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for the invitation to be on this panel. As we, I think, all experience every now and then, it can be at times a bit lonely to be a vegan in the corporate world. So super to be surrounded by so many fellow vegans. So fantastic.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, we're wondering about your thoughts pre-COVID in the real 2019. If you considered quitting your job and joining the vegan movement full time. And I'll give you a little bit of time. The numbers are coming in. They're still fluctuating. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper with this. We've got 56% at A and 44% at C.
Thank you so much, Gail. So now let's just put this topic into a bigger context. One of the most common questions that comes to vegan leaders from our members is, how can I get a vegan job? That comes again and again. And frankly, our mission of our organization is to really try to keep vegans working in the corporate world so we can have those vegan voices representing in that powerful industry. And today we just want to kind of really tell you that there are many different ways how you can be a vegan activist. The first one is, of course, is to go ahead and make the switch. And that, again, that has a couple different ways. You could either start a vegan small business, or you can join a vegan or animal rights organization. Secondly, you can do activism at work. Now, this is really what the Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management is really all about. This is part of our mission. We really want to empower and mobilize vegans who work all over big companies to put together vegan programs, vegan initiatives, set up vegan groups. So this is kind of a second strategy that is sometimes forgotten. And the third one is really what we are talking about today, and that is to keep your job, keep your day job, but then find a way to do some kind of activism on the side. And this, again, has so many different forms. It can be really heavy, it can be very light. And I mean, you could find so many ways to plug in. These last 2 options have one thing in common, and that is you get to keep your day job. So now let's talk a little bit about the strategy of keeping your you don't have to really give up anything. But is it really a good strategy for you? That truly depends. It depends on many things. So now let's try to kind of go through a thought process of deciding whether this strategy could be right for you. So it really comes down to asking yourself some questions. So let's go through them kind of one by one. This is based on our personal experience and based on talking to many, many members who ended wherever they ended. So if we kind of break it down and say, when is it really a good idea to go ahead and take a vegan job versus trying to have it both ways and keep a big corporate job and do some kind of big activism, or keep your day job, but really just be more of a donor and supporter to the movement. So let's get this first one out of the way. Frankly, the truth is, if you want to have a well-rounded life, such as you want to have a family, you want to do something else other than work or activism, if you want to travel, it may just not be possible to do these first two. And you might be just best off being a donor and supporter to the movement. Then, if you either love your corporate job, or it is important for you to keep the perks of the corporate job, such as the benefits, prestige, corporate environment, big budget for your project, then you should really stay somewhere here. Keep your job regardless and choose if it makes sense for you to do some kind of big activism or small activism. This next one is really, really interesting and really important. Are you good at juggling two big things? Are you able to do that? If so, then you could do this. If not, if you are the type of person that really thrives best when you have one big thing going on, then you should either take a vegan job or you should keep your day job and just be a donor supporter. This next one I think is also really interesting because I think sometimes people do not kind of correctly ask themselves this question, and then they maybe end up in a strategy that is not fulfilling. If you are the type of person that really thrives if you work on something that is yours, you could either take some kind of vegan job, or you could keep your day job and do some kind of big activism. Because, you know, really people who like to found their organization or drive something fit here. And then, you know, a couple other questions which should make sense. Is vegan activism very, very important to you? If it's not, that's totally okay. We need people who are vegans, who are committed, but they just kind of want to be corporate professionals. We need those everywhere. But if vegan activism is very important to you, of course, it kind of makes sense that you would want to make it part of your big part of your life. Finally, if you really think you might want to take a vegan job, really ask yourself if you would be okay having that lifestyle. Because taking a vegan job does mean certain sacrifices. You may have to, you know, scale back on your expenses, and you may kind of not be ready to work in an environment that is more startup, younger people. It's just very different. So hopefully this just gives you some ideas of what questions you should ask yourself to figure out where you should land.
All right, thank you, Darina. And with this in mind, let's go to our panelists right now and talk about some of these things. So Clifton, let's start with you and tell us a little bit more about, I guess, your decision-making process that you went through. Maybe you had a similar rubric that Darina just presented, but why did you decide to do a full-time corporate job, which I imagine takes a lot of your time, and do vegan activism on the side? And you can also, we're going to do 2 questions at a time because they kind of go one into another. And also, do you have to put on a different persona at work? Is there some maybe conflict, some incongruence between what you truly believe in and what you face at work? And how do you square off those 2 identities?
Yeah, great questions. So thank you, first of all, for having me and inviting me. And hello to everyone else on the call. I really appreciate the time that we're spending together this morning. So why did I decide to keep a corporate job and do activism? Of course, being a vegan itself is an activist. So that's the personal part of being an activist. I remember first being a vegan and just being so passionate, and I thought it'd be so easy, especially in my immediate sphere of influence, to convince people, oh, you have to understand the health benefits, you have to understand that it's the right thing to do for animals, and it just was the most difficult thing I've ever encountered, and it's the most painful thing because, especially for your loved ones, that's a difficult thing to go through, you know. Specifically for work, I think when I started to get frustrated with politics in the United States, I started to search, and I knew that no matter what you do as a citizen of any country, whether you're working or not working, or you're an entrepreneur or whatever the case is, most people, they're good part-time politicians, right? Meaning they have some input into a political process that defines who the leaders are for that country. So I didn't look at it any different when I came across the Humane Party, which, by the way, in 2014 for me was, whoa, there's an actual political party in the United States that truly fights for the rights of non-human animals and the environment. And so it was a no-brainer for me when I started to volunteer. And Dorina remembers this. I mean, I was reaching out to everybody. I'm like, there's a political party in the United States that fights for the rights of non-human animals. And so it was a no-brainer, and that's how I was able to balance. Plus the jobs that I had since then, the first was for ethics and legal compliance. And my job was to make sure that everyone at Intel is doing their job with uncompromising integrity and all that stuff, and ethics involved. And I felt like I can leverage what I was doing at, let me make sure I leverage what I was doing at, for Intel with my activism. So second part of your question is, do I put on a different persona? I don't really. People that I know and work with all know that I'm vegan. And as a matter of fact, it works to my benefit, because anytime we go to an outing and dinner is brought, if we're having a corporate function or some sort of summit, I'm usually the one where there's a special dish that's covered, that's brought out to me. Or there's a sign on the table that says the vegan, and people are always curious about what is on my plate, and they just say that looks delicious, and so for the sake of time, I hope I captured everything that you needed there, and we'll let some other folks.
Thank you very much. I think what I heard was that there was some earning to do more. So while you enjoy your corporate daytime job, you want to keep it because you want to continue making influence in the corporate world. You wanted to do more and really kind of spread your wings and really contribute to something on the side. So I think it was a very natural progression for you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and I am very familiar with being at the dinner table and getting a very special meal.
Yeah, I think we all are.
And usually I get, oh, that doesn't look bad at all. That's usually what I get. All right. Well, thank you. Carlos, how about you? Share with us, please.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, I can relate to a lot of things that have been said. Indeed, the little sign next to your plate that says the vegan is very recognizable. I've been vegan now for, I think now 3 years. And so far, it has been a blast with zero regrets. A few years ago, I attended an animal rights march, and there was this lady that had this big, colorful sign that said, "Sorry it took me so long." And that's basically, the only regret that I have. It took me way too long to become vegan. And I remember in the first year of being vegan, I became more aware of, let's put it like this, let's say the problematic position of animals in the livestock industry. And becoming aware of that, I found it personally very difficult not to act. So just eating plant-based at a certain point in time for myself was not longer sufficient. Be the change you want to see in this world. So I decided to do something. Now, I like the question. I think it's a super relevant question, but I don't necessarily, that was the conclusion that I draw back then. I don't necessarily think that vegan activism is something you do on the side, right? So you got your corporate job, you earn your money through having, a corporate job, you get your paycheck, and then in your spare time, you do vegan activism. Sometimes, and I think that's also when vegan activism can be super effective, I don't consider it to be an add-on, in particular when there's lack of time, and I think that's something we all relate to. Integrating your vegan activism into your work can be super effective. Whenever you look for ways to align your vegan values with your corporate values, a lot good can come out of that. Just to relate to my company, Deloitte. So Deloitte mission is to make an impact that matters on clients, people, and society. So a couple of years ago, we initiated a project within Deloitte to better monitor animal welfare in the animal industry by developing an intelligent camera surveillance project. So basically, you've got cameras, and they monitor whether there is a deviation for whatever the animal welfare standard is. And by contributing and by leading, initiating that project, I also contributed to Deloitte's ambition to making an impact on society. So when I presented the case to initiate this project, this intelligent camera surveillance project, to the board of Deloitte, not only did they, and I was like, nobody wants this. You're gonna be dealing with, to some extent, the not so pretty side of this industry. But not only did they approve this project, they actually also, through the Deloitte Impact Foundation, provided a lot of expert hours that were made available to develop this intelligent camera surveillance capability. So I believe that on more than one occasions, doors opened that otherwise would have stayed shut because I represent this brand and because I activate my company to do good for animals. So sometimes, yes, indeed, it's on the side, but sometimes it's super powerful to integrate it with the ambitions and strategy that you as an employee, but as also the company has. So I fully understand that might not be always the case. So am I planning to quit anytime soon Deloitte? No, not very likely, because I understand that I have this powerful instrument, this very strong vehicle, which is called Deloitte, where I can do good for my people, I can do good for my clients, but I can also do good for animals through the expertise and the knowledge that we have. And this project now is super successful. We are now talking to various companies that are willing to adopt this camera surveillance that will very much look into where there might be issues when we're dealing with animal welfare. So regarding the question about the personas, do you have a persona when you do vegan activism and when you're a leader in the corporate world? No, I don't have different personas. I mean, I can be an annoying vegan at work and an annoying vegan outside the office, but I think whatever you do in life, staying true to yourself and your values is critical to do it in an energizing, sustainable way. I mean, the tone of voice might differ, when you're with colleagues and clients who might be less familiar with what veganism stands for versus your intimate friends. But the concept of living your life through different personas doesn't feel, sustainable to me. So, work can be very demanding on your personal life. So I personally think that's only fair to bring your core values into your working environment. And as long as those personal values are expressed in a professional, positive, constructive way, I know it will not only benefit your personal happiness, but also your company's success. Let me stop there for a second.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I was interested in your perspective as well, because Deloitte being a consulting company, some people may end up working for a meat company and they're vegan, right? They have a contract, they need to go consult, and it's a meat company and there's a conflict. I actually spoke to one Deloitte person a while back, and he knew somebody who was vegan and ended up consulting for a meat company. But the example that you gave as to using the cameras to see animals in distress and to take care of animal welfare is actually a great example of combining the two.
Absolutely. I always say, boldly go where no vegans have gone before. Sometimes the areas, the livestock industry, sometimes, the food industry, we shy away from, because it confronts us with the reality that we don't adhere to, we don't agree with. But to be given the opportunity to interact with stakeholders, clients from an industry that you would like to change is also an opportunity. Now, I understand that it's not something that everybody can do, but when I was given this opportunity, I was like, let's go for it. Let's engage with these people and let's see what we can change. And I always say, if I can be friends with people who eat meat and consume animal products, I can develop a working relationship with people who produce these products. And so far it has benefited animals. So yeah, I can encourage not necessarily to shy away, unless obviously you contribute to that industry in another way, but don't shy away from those opportunities per se.
Thank you. So let's hear from Judy that we pre-recorded her answers to this. So posted it, I'm going to play it. I'm going to share my screen and play her interview just real quick. If you don't hear the sound, please let me know. Post it in the chat.
Sounds like a crazy choice, and you've probably faced it, and probably other people that are on this call or listening to it have as well. But also for me, and I'm sure for some others too, perhaps yourself, it was never really a choice. I was also raised in a household where giving back to the community was just a natural part of who we are. So I've done volunteer work along with working for as long as I can remember, other than a few times I've been blessed to take sabbaticals. The bigger shift, frankly, was probably evolving from doing grief support and hospice volunteer work, which is where I focused for about 10 years, to choosing animal welfare, plant forward, and vegan activism over the bereavement work. You're right. I do. And as I shared, I found some ways to reconcile it. But I'm also blessed that working for a global Fortune 50 company, because we really are encouraging diversity and we have a history of that, we emphasize bringing our whole self to work. So I've always been very open and felt very safe and supported about being plant-based or vegan and finding ways to bring this into my work. The Greener Diet group I've started, initially when I was approaching that, I made it my diversity and inclusion goal, which I actually really enjoyed getting buy-in from the two different executives I was working for at the time, getting their buy-in and having conversation around why this is important diversity and inclusion work. And I'm always the voice asking people to seek out food sensitivities, allergies, or personal choices for any event that requires food planning, like lunch and learns or roundtables or offsites or just our general business travel. I have to guard or be more careful about the benefits that I focus on. And so with that, I accept that I can't focus on animal welfare. But as I said, I just appreciate the platform and the benefit that we have overall. So I'm willing to put that different persona on, because it allows me to have the Greener Diet group and some of the other activities I do because of that. And I think that's fantastic for the platform overall.
All right, so as you can see, Judy's story is just slightly different. Just for benefit, for your background, she started a Greener Diet vegan network at the Bank of America, and it took a while. It's a conservative organization. It took 2 tries. And on a 3rd try, when she finally, I think, had a bigger role and she could spin it as a diversity and inclusion in the workplace, then she was able to start that role. But as you can see, she cannot focus exactly on animal welfare in her workplace. She has to do it more of the health of the employees, networking, and things like that. So it has to take a little bit different angle, but she shared with me kind of outside of the interview that even though I can't really speak openly about animal welfare, people who convert to plant-based, she calls it plant forward, people who become plant forward naturally over time turn to animal activism, or they start understanding more about animal rights. So indirectly, she is serving her mission regardless.
Okay, for the second poll, we're interested in what your feeling is about the primary contribution, responsibility, obligation of corporate vegans to the movement. We have kind of a suspicion, since we all are corporate vegans here, but wondering if any of your feelings are changing, either due to where you are in your job or COVID, perhaps even. Results are coming in. The majority, well, actually it's split, B and D. So still really keeping your day job and influencing where you are or being on boards that support the vegan movement. Right now, that's 50-50, 60-40. But that's really kind of what we expected from this group. B&D. Thank you.
So if anybody is willing and open to share either in the chat or coming off mute, tell us a little bit more about why you answered, how you answered just now. Why did you pick that certain answer? We're very curious to hear from you.
You know, I have really been another example of a person who have been, you know, a corporate person at work and then very, very involved with vegan grassroots activism on the side. So for many years, I have been in touch with so many organizations and really in tune with what they are thinking. A lot of the vegan organizations really need the money. So they don't really need more people to apply for jobs. They usually don't have as many jobs and way too much interest in those jobs, but they are short on money. And they're also short on senior expertise. So usually for a lot of organizations, when they recruit board members, they have actually pretty hard time finding people outside of their existing circle. So those are the two areas that the organizations themselves are saying are still in short supply and would like more of that coming their way.
Thank you for sharing that, Dorina. I feel I was definitely very conflicted at one point, and I completely agree with what you're saying. But at one point, believe it or not, I actually worked for a meat company for quite a while, and I was vegan in the meat company at the time. And I definitely felt a huge conflict. What can I do? What should I do? Should I just quit all this? So I went through quite a bit of just many different iterations of kind of a mental and emotional states. And I did decide to stay, and I decided to stay in the corporate world. And I did continue influencing as much as I could back when I was working at the meat company. And now I'm fortunate to have a job in the health and wellness industry for a different corporation and be very much openly vegan, which is quite amazing. But I completely agree that a lot of these vegan initiatives need professional skills in the senior leadership. And us in the position that we are, I think we're very well versed and have the right skills and expertise to really make a difference in that movement. And we have a Sadie having a comment here. She picked D, okay, because you found vegan professionals that have a huge range of skill sets, which are invaluable in so many different ways to the movement. That is correct. Digital skills, public speaking, critical thinking, politics, absolutely. And Wayne, you're sharing, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to poll question 2. It really depends on your interests and purpose and goals. All is appreciated and very helpful to the vegan animal movement as many roles to, yes, exactly. Gianluca, I was undecided between B and D, yes, but ultimately went for B as I see a more immediately actionable. Would love to do D as well. And there's a question, do you know of any organization that would help match those open positions and candidates with our type of backgrounds? Dorina, we should put Gianluca with Emily. Or what's Emily, I think is her name,
Emma.
right? Emma.
Or Emily. Gianluca, also, this concept was tried before. There were several organizations in the last 5 years that tried to exactly create this concept. I don't believe any of them really took off. It is a lot of work. You know, you really have to have that platform and constantly build that platform, match people back and forth. It is a big undertaking. I am not at this time aware of an organization that is doing, you know, like an excellent job at it. But this idea has been out there for a long time, and I wouldn't be surprised if you searched for it right now, if you found some organizations that are new to this.
Thank you. And Doug, excellent. You selected B. And my decision to become a vegan is based on the desire for a much healthier diet. I'm all with you on this. I'm big on that. The more I learn, the more important educating others becomes. And right now that education is sharing some of the amazing recipes I tried and communicating information about the health benefit. Absolutely. I actually do the same. I have a whole Instagram account just posting pictures of my food.
And Doug, so if any of you need any type of support in helping your company transition slowly but steadily towards a more plant-based food offer, an food offer that is also more sustainable, more inclusive, more healthy, and also more tastier, I mean, through my company that I created together with the #1 vegan social influencer in the Netherlands, Lisa Stel. Check her out on Instagram. Lisa Goes Vegan. You will see fantastic stuff. It's primarily Dutch, but there are some English posts as well. Through Smarter Food Choice, we actually provide a company with all sorts of tools and workshops and food labs in order to accelerate that transition. So if you feel a bit lonely, if you don't know necessarily how to initiate that transition towards more plant-based, healthier, more inclusive, more sustainable, then there's a lot of stuff that we can share with you. And being part of this vegan corporate family, I'm more than happy to provide you with that information with no type of payment or whatever. So if you need that type of information on top of obviously what's already provided by this fantastic team, I'm more than happy to share what we have and what we've done for other companies in order to help them transition towards more plant-based and healthier.
Thank you, Carlos. Clifton, on that note, does the Humane Party have speakers, or do they do any kind of public speaking, go to the corporation, provide some education on sustainable economy, for example, or things like that?
Yeah, there's a few. The Humane Party is still relatively a young party compared to most other political parties, and just celebrated 10 years, right?
Wow, congratulations.
2014. So when you think about the roots and history of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, we still have a long way to go. What is promising to me was when I started to get involved, there have been other candidates that have stepped forward. There are groups within the Humane Party that, so like, for example, the Economic Transition Team. There are people that do research that are even part of the Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management group. Some I've even met through it, like Guy Rittner, who used to work for the hotel chain, but he came in as our chief technology officer. But anyway, the Economic Transition Team talks about current issues that would pose a problem to this country if all of us just went vegan today. I mean, if the entire country went vegan today, what would happen to jobs and things like that? So they used to meet every week, and they do write white papers that have been published that this community can share as well. So all that is on humaneparty.org. And if for any reason you have any problem finding that, let me know. In terms of actual speakers, I think most of the speakers would be the candidates that step up. So I started off as a volunteer, but moved to being a candidate. And I've ran for office twice now. Unsuccessfully in terms of actually winning a seat, but success in terms of spreading awareness. And there has not been a state that I visited that I have not met anyone that have come up to me and said, I voted for you. So that has been amazing.
Wow.
Robert Mason, who was the second ever candidate out of Texas and ran for the House of Representatives as a vegan. And in his publicity poses, he posed in a suit with no shoes and a yoga pose. I thought that was amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially out of Texas, the cattle.
Absolutely. I mean, you can imagine the challenges he faced. And so my hope is that as we go along, it will inspire other professionals, because I think for me, I don't think there's any better suited person to run for political office than a corporate professional. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. And I truly believe that if corporate professionals took the bulls by the horns, and I'm a perfect example of running a ranch. I have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, the daughter that passed away, 25-year-old, a 15-year-old, full-time at Intel, and I ran for office. But I think it's going to take folks like us that understand organizational behavior, that understand what it takes to organize a movement, to create demand. It's going to take people like that to run for office and unseat the 500 and something people that are in power that just will not give us any time of day, that will not consider a bill, that will not consider an amendment. And I've always said in places that I go speak, people have asked me to run as a Democrat. The reason why I cannot at this moment is because I would have to be a champion for its platform. And if you go to the Democrats' platform, there's 0 mentions of the word animal. And if you go to the Republicans' platform, there's 1 mention of the word animal. And if you go to the Humane Party's platform, there's 38 mentions of the word animal. And I've been accused of, spoiling the vote and wasting people's vote. And, you wouldn't even know how people voted if they didn't share it with you, right? If people weren't brave enough to just say, yeah, I voted for so-and-so, I mean, it's your right to keep it a secret, to tell people. It's the same as the right to brush your hair, right? And so it just amazes me when people get angry about it. But anyway, I know I went way beyond what you were asking.
Excellent perspective. Thank you so much. So we are not alone. There's plenty of resources out there. And I'm just thrilled that we have this landmark, a vegan presidential candidate. I think this is huge.
Back to you, Gail.
Thank you. So this poll is asking about what interests you in terms of activism. We've broken it down into different buckets in terms of tasks or generalities. And we're curious to see where the bulk of you fall. The bulk in strategy work, 44%, 33% in professional skills area, and 22% working directly with animals.
Okay, so let's turn to our lovely panelists one more time here and talk about just really how you managing this. Clifton mentioned that he has a full-time job and he's running for the party and he's got several kids. And so how do you manage your time? I don't think there's any magic secret, but what keeps you from actually burning out? And what advice would you give others to find the perfect vegan project? If people are on this call inspired, they want to do more, how was the best way to find the perfect vegan project? Let's start with you, Clifton.
Thank you. So yeah, definitely COVID-19 has changed everything, as I'm sure it has for all of you on the call. When we purchased the ranch, that moved me an hour and 20 minutes away from my job in Folsom, California. I live in Marysville, California now. So I had an hour and 20 minute commute, which added that made it a little bit more challenging. But I think naturally being a vegan, I've been a vegan now it'll be 23 years in September. And that naturally just, you feel a lot more energetic. The way I explained turning plant-based to people is your first 2 weeks, you feel like this electricity running through you. And having grown up overseas and being exposed to martial arts my entire life, I truly have a storybook story, being raised around a really great man named Fusei Kisei since I was 4 years old, who taught me, martial arts in Okinawa, Japan. I've figured out how to, sleep, get good sleep in 2-hour stints and things like that. A little unrealistic. So COVID has helped me a little bit with that. And that helps me with the burnout. And I think one of the things I have to remind myself of is that while I went vegan for selfish reasons, which was for myself and to get rid of my asthma, which it did, my acne, which it did, I always remind myself that it is for animals, and we're going to continue to kind of represent them. I would encourage people to stop using the words, we are the voices for the voiceless, because they definitely have voices that we just don't understand their language. But we do have to represent their interests in the best way that we can. And I want my children to be proud of me. That's another reason why I don't get burned out. I remember running for president in 2016, and my son came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, do you know 200 years from now in school, in the history books, you'll be listed as the first candidate to ever explicitly state on his platform that he is running for animals as well?" So yeah. How do you find the perfect project at work? Gosh, this is such a great question. So I'll give you a specific example. Align it to what it is that you are doing at work to make the best impact possible. And the VP at Bank of America gave a great example of that, including in D&I. One of the things I've done recently when I was, I've switched jobs again, but I was recently Global Director of Cloud and Data Policy. And I thought to myself, God, what if government agencies can have to release all of its data? Whether it's health data, agricultural data, disease data about, human disease. And so if you were to Google me and say, Intel and data or whatever, there's been plenty of trips that I've made to the White House recently talking to the Office of Management and Budget or the Office of Technology. And I have been influencing them regarding the best and most effective ways for its agencies to release its data. And not only that, what data sets should be triaged by these federal agencies to be most effective. And they didn't know that they had been infiltrated. And I am there representing the interests of a broader set of constituents beyond Intel. I was there representing human beings and why they are getting sick. And so I was able to influence a law called the U.S. Open Government Data Act, where government agencies now, it's a law that they have to release all of their data. And now what I'm doing is through various Intel programs like AI for Youth, we are educating entire populations of different countries about how to program algorithms in AI. You see where I'm going with this? So now all this data is being available. Let's use that data to for a purpose of showing the government, hey, we're not making this up. People are getting sick and it's meat. People are getting sick and it's dairy. The environment is getting sick and this is coming from your own agency. You know what I mean? So definitely use your strengths to get things done.
That's a perfect example of blending kind of your skills, which you're already doing, with your passion and turning this into a project that makes a difference. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing. Carlos, how about you?
Yeah, we were on the same page on this one. So how do we avoid, going into a burnout? I mean, I don't necessarily think that working hard is the main reason why people burn out. I think it's doing things you really don't like to do, you're not super passionate about over a longer period. That's, I think, what's causing burnouts. And for me, all my vegan and plant-based initiative, whether it's smarter food choices or the intelligent camera surveillance, or my wife and I run a small platform called Free the Chi, which is a Chihuahua rescue platform on Instagram, or whether some of the work that we do together with a animal welfare organization called Eyes on Animals, they're all net contributors to my personal and professional happiness. And I'm blessed with a job that is super demanding, but also gives me a lot of freedom and allows me to have, on one hand, a very full and busy agenda, but also a very flexible one. And on top of that, I don't have kids. I think that also helps in freeing up some time to do all of that. In terms of finding the perfect vegan project, I think I fully agree with Clifton. Find something that is aligned with your intrinsic passions and values. I mean, if it might be on the animal welfare side, or it might be on the health side, or it might be regarding sustainability, or it might be about, what you mentioned, delicious food and delicious cooking. Find something that really resonates with you. Another piece of advice that I would have is try to find that project where you can really make an impact, given your unique skills, your unique expertise, your network, or the power of your company. Where can you make the biggest impact? Your time is scarce. I'm not sure what everybody's doing, but I know one thing: your time is scarce, and so make sure there is a return on investment. And whatever you can combine it with what you're currently doing, the better. And one strengthens the other. And my last piece of advice, and I know it's not always possible, consider bringing your vegan activism to places where veganism is not necessarily a given. As I said, to boldly go where no vegan has gone before. And to give you an example, so the co-owner of Smarter Food Choices, Lisa Stell, she is very much a vegan, long-time vegan, but she's decided to team up with a chain of steak restaurants to introduce the first vegan burger. So she was able to go into this place where obviously, she cannot eat anything. She doesn't necessarily approve. But by putting this vegan burger that was super tasty, vegan burger on the menu, she was able to expose people that would not necessarily consider a vegan option with an alternative to meat. Another friend of mine, Leslie Moffat, who is the director of Eyes on Animals, she's a vegan, and she goes into animal transportation and to slaughterhouses to monitor and improve, whenever possible, the conditions animals are in this industry. So this is not for everyone. It's I can tell you it's a tough job, but she does not shy away from engaging in a conversation, sometimes very constructive conversation, with people that we normally would not necessarily engage with. So trying to go to these places where a vegan might not necessarily always be expected to fulfill a role. So yeah, I think, but the most important thing, as already we said, try to find something that is super aligned with your passion and your value, and then it's a long-term thing.
Wow, thank you for sharing this. That last example is amazing. Kudos. Please give us a big bow and huge thanks to this person who's doing those things, working with the slaughterhouses.
So we just want to share our 2 cents from VLCM about how to find the right project. And it's so amazing how this fits exactly with what our panelists have said. So, if you kind of think about it, there are really 3 different things that have to work. The right circumstance, the right type of actual task you're doing, and the right organization. This one is really what we talked about earlier. Asking yourself those questions, really consider where you are with your life. This is what both of our panelists hit so beautifully. Don't sign up for things you don't enjoy doing. If it's not your thing to go do the slaughterhouse improvement, do not sign up for it if you know for a fact you're not gonna thrive in it. And the final piece is how to find an organization with whom you should volunteer. So this one really comes down to some research. So I just want to share with you some ideas on this final piece. How can you find an organization to get involved with? There are so many different ways. For many of us, actually, it just starts with knowing somebody at the organization who either reaches out to you to invite you to volunteer or join the board, or you reach out to them to offer your services. Or you find out about cool organizations on media, social media, or from others, and you get so excited about the specific work that they do that you just look them up and reach out. Another great way to learn of a lot of organizations to pick from is a big conference such as Animal Rights Conference, Reducitarian Summit, many other conferences, which, this year it's a little tricky. There might be some virtual ones, but that's really a great place where many organizations come and set up a table, and you can just kind of walk around, talk to the representatives, and really learn a lot about the landscape. Online research, of course, especially if you're looking for something specific. There are also some organizations that specialize in evaluating animal rights and vegan groups to help donors and supporters pick the most effective ones. Or another option could be maybe you are a programmer, or you have some kind of skill that is so specific that you need a particular organization that would need that. Because as our panelists say, you just want to be very impactful, and you would rather do something that utilizes your specific skills. So these are just some strategies. And now let me tell you a little bit about this one. There is one organization out there which coincidentally was for a while led by my husband, John. He no longer works there, and now this organization is led by a female executive director. This organization's mission is to help people like you sort out the whole landscape of all the animal charities and evaluate them based on some pretty factual, strict, science-based criteria. Each year, they do this whole annual process to assess, talk to, evaluate a lot of charities, and they come up with the top charity recommendations. So for example, for this year, Albert Schweitzer Foundation, Anima International, the Humane League, the long-standing recommended charity, and the Good Food Institutes were chosen. And this is not just based on these organizations are cool or we like their leaders. This is a very scientific, thorough process that goes through many criteria. It's almost as thorough as a venture capital firm evaluating candidates for investment. This organization also, in addition to putting out a list of recommended charities, puts out a list of so-called standout charities. And the idea is that in addition to the organizations that are truly the best run, most strategic, and so on, there are charities out there that just do something really unique that has a lot of potential, a lot of upside. So for example, this is just a quick kind of snapshot of the latest list of standout charities. These charities are from all possible focus areas. And what's really wonderful here is that out of these 5, 3 of them are non-US. So there is an organization in India that made this list and 2 organizations in Brazil. I was so excited to see this. So this is just an example for you of one organization that does this work. And if you go to the Animal Charity Evaluators website, you can see the entire list of all other groups that have been considered. So if nothing else, it just gives you a really great database of all the organizations that are out there. So now let's turn it over to Gail for one more poll question.
Okay, one more quick poll. There we go. What's your must-have when you're considering an organization that you want to be working with? What do you have to have? Proximity culture? Is it about the mission? Is it about the type of work? Do you want to bond with the team? We kind of were profiling our professional group here and we're guesstimating where we thought you guys would fall. But we're getting a good selection around the board here.
Gail, as the questions are coming in, if you wouldn't mind me kind of contributing to some of the thinking here. I remember when In Defense of Animals approached me, and there was a young lady out of Australia that actually said, "Hey, Clifton, I've been talking with the current members of the board." And so this directly, I remember thinking to myself, gosh, another board, because I was already a member of Lakewood College board, and I just shared with you everything else I do. But I just could not be involved with In Defense of Animals. And definitely their specific mission or type of work, which is C, really stood out to me. And I actually didn't look at it as an opportunity for them. I looked at it as an opportunity for me. So I love this poll question right here.
Thank you.
Everything else fell into place too, by the way. I mean, I've already started to bond with the team. I've been able to look at their effectiveness and strategy and make some recommendations as a board member. So it's just been a rewarding, fulfilling experience.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I can see how once you're involved, it could bleed into any of these other categories that we have.
Absolutely.
It looks like things have settled down a bit. We've got 70% in C, mission, and 30% in E, effectiveness and strategy. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So the last thing we want to cover with you today, and thank you so much for sticking around for a couple extra minutes, is the issue of burnout. Both of our panelists have shared some amazing insights on this. Finally, we just want to share with you a couple go-to phrases you can use if somebody approaches you with an offer that just is not right for you. So it really comes down to being comfortable saying no a lot. We vegans have a tendency to overcome it and then, causing frustration because we just simply cannot do it. So let me please just go over 4 different variations on a no if somebody approaches you with something you just don't think you should do. The first one is just kind of a classic example if you are simply already maxed out. And I mean, all you have to do is, I love what you are doing, but I'm already really maxed out. I cannot take on anymore. The second scenario is if somebody wants you to get involved with something, but you are passionate about something else. So what you can do, something like, oh gosh, that's very intriguing. It's just that, my big thing is this other thing, and it already demands on my attention. Nothing wrong with saying that, because again, you just have one you, and every time you pick an area to be involved with, you are choosing not to get involved with everything else. You have just kind of one window. The next scenario is, and this is, I think, where our panelists both said this as well, is please do not get involved with something you would hate doing. You will just burn out. It will just not work. So, for me personally, something like this could be fundraising. I just absolutely detest fundraising. I would not be willing to do that, and I would ultimately just suffer in it. So if something like this came up, I was just like, sorry, but this is just not my strong suit, and I just don't think I would do a good job in that role. The final scenario is that if now is just not the right time. If there is an organization that approaches you today with something that could be great a year from now, just tell them it's not a fit right now, but please let's be in touch and I'll let you know if that changes in the future. So I hope these little phrases are helpful for you to just put in your toolbox and just make sure you are using them actually when these situations come up. So with that, this was kind of the end of our topic today, unless we can still play the Judy Scheffel clip. But we do want to let you know about our upcoming livecast, which will be led by Anastasia and Gail. And it will be about a topic that is near and dear to everybody, whether you work in the healthcare industry or not. Because all of us, I think, really see that the healthcare sector could be our ally, and they are not. So please join us for this next livecast a month from now. And please check out our overall 2020 schedule of topics, like that political livecast that will be coming and others that we have lined up. Please do remember that each of these events is a separate event and requires a separate registration in order for you to receive the joint code. And with that, that's what we had today. But let's circle back to Anastasia to see if she was able to get the sound. Yay.
I found in the activism or nonprofit work that I do, it's very important, though, to be clear about expectations and timeframes and manage to those. Scope creep, just like it can happen in our day jobs, scope creep can occur in activism work. And I found it's important to me to call that out and see what I'm comfortable taking on. And it's been an opportunity for me actually to practice, having better boundaries and being a stronger communicator for myself, an advocate for myself about what will and what will not work for me. I found, though, that when articulated clearly and in a positive manner, the activist and nonprofit partners I work with are always really supportive and realize that many of us are juggling a lot. It's a good question. And two thoughts there, and one ties into what we just talked about, doing something that we're passionate about. But first, something I've learned to, it's a phrase I've taught myself that's helped me balance things. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. So for example, I found that some of the skills that I use super effectively in my corporate work, like sales or fundraising or leading or managing large initiatives, are not how I want to spend my time when I do activism work. Sometimes, as we just said, I want an opportunity that utilizes a different skill set or talent, or that's just simpler or easier than my corporate job. So just because I can do certain nonprofit roles or gigs doesn't mean I should. But for me, it really comes down to being clear on how I want to support an organization or cause, and also what I want to gain from it. Where can I be the most passionate about the work itself? So that's what I look to what excites me, what excites us, what gives us passion. That's going to renew our energy level, and I really think it'll help us sustain having dual areas where we focus. And I think it's really practicing the boundary setting that I said, being clear about what I want to give or contribute to an organization, and then seeking out work that I'm passionate about. Those are the types of things that allow me to be the most effective activist.